Hello and good evening, friends. The fact that you're watching News Sunday shows how seriously you take what's happening around you and in the country. So let's have an hour of engaging news conversation. More importantly, we are in a state of war. I'm not exaggerating. We as a nation are in a state of war. We are at war in our minds. We are agitated and angry. It's a tempest of what ifs and why nots whirling through the conscience of each one of us tonight. What if we had bombed Pakistan after the parliament attack in 2001 or the Mumbai carnage of 2008 and drew some red lines? Why not we blockade Pakistan through its coastline now? Why not just bomb the hell out of Muridke and Bahawalpur? Did Pakistan care about consequences when it stabbed us in our back and gave Kargil in return of the Lahore bus? Did Pakistan care about world opinion when it harbored terrorists from Osama bin Laden to the Kabul bomber who was delivered to America just last month? If not, then why should we? Who is being responsible? Did Russia care when it launched that military operation against Ukraine? Or does America when it has to target Houthis? Does China really give an F while manipulating the global trade with currency games and predatory subsidies? As if हमने ठेका ले रखा है responsible होने का? I'm sure these are not just my thoughts alone. They are in the minds of each and every concerned patriot Indian tonight. As India prepares its kinetic response to inflict costs on terror, the perpetrators and its backers, let's have a conversation on what's on the table. Headlines first. India prepares offensive against Pakistan. Back-to-back meetings held in the national capital. In the latest, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh meets the Prime Minister. CDS General Anil Chauhan meets Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. The DG BSF holds a meet at the MHA. From Bandipora to Kupwara to Kulgam, large-scale anti-terror operations underway over ground workers on the radar.
Stand together with the Hindu community in Canada, with the Hindu community in Kashmir, and the Hindu community all over the world.
From India to globally around the world, protests and anger against Pakistan rises. World leaders extend unequivocal support to India.
मैं पीड़ित परिवारों को फिर भरोसा देता हूं, उन्हें न्याय मिलेगा, न्याय मिलकर रहेगा। इस हमले के दोषियों और साजिश रचने वालों को कठोरतम जवाब दिया जाएगा।
Prime Minister Modi gives a big message on Pahalgam, says blood of every Indian boiling and that victims will definitely get justice. Well, friends, it's really building up to something with the kind of meetings that are taking place, with the kind of movements we are hearing of our forces, with the kind of muscle flexing we saw earlier in the day from the Navy. There is something that's being seriously considered and planned to make sure that whosoever thought of Pahalgam terror attack as trying to victimize India is not going to get the last laugh. We are going to inflict costs. Let's look at the developments that have taken place through the day on the hectic parleys in New Delhi and preparations across the country. And then I come back with a panel for a conversation.
Anger against Pakistan is rising. Not just in India, but globally. The National Investigation Agency has begun the process of formally taking over the Pahalgam terror attack case, in which 26 innocent tourists were mercilessly shot dead on Tuesday, following orders from the Union Ministry of Home Affairs. In just 72 hours, houses of 9 terrorists and their associates have been demolished, with authorities saying similar action will be taken against others involved in terror activities. In Bijbehara, Anantnag, forces blasted the hideout of Adil Hussain Thokar, alias Adil Gure, a key player in the terror grid.
This is the house, the home belongs to Adil Thakur, who is also known as Adil Guri, a man accused of orchestrating the devastating Pahalgam terror attack that claims 26 lives, leaving behind the scenes that tell a story of loss and the complex layers of terrorism. In the site is cordoned off by the thin layer of police tape. A small crowd of villagers gathered at a distance. I can ask my VJ Mubashir to show you the crowd visuals that have gathered here, and their faces a mix of curiosity, fear and resignation. The sounds can also be heard where the people, the neighbors are sobbing, they crying for what has happened here as the demolition was carried by the Jammu and Kashmir police.
In Awantipora, operations zeroed in on Asif Sheikh, while another major assault in Pulwama crushed the base of Ahsan Sheikh, both linked to recent terror activity.
यहाँ पर ये जो मेरे पीछे आप मलबा देख रहे हैं, ये मलबा है एक घर का, जो घर बताया जा रहा है एहसान उल हक का। और ये जो घर देख रहे हैं आप, ये एहसान उल हक का घर है जिसे कल देर रात ब्लास्ट के ज़रिए ध्वस्त कर दिया गया। एहसान उल हक के बारे में दे दे जानकारी आपको कि ये जो एहसान उल हक है, ये जो है 2018 में पाकिस्तान गया था ट्रेनिंग लेने के लिए। इसके बाद यहाँ पर जो है ये कुछ दिनों पहले ही आया था घाटी में वापस। जैश ए मोहम्मद का जो आतंकी है ये बताया जा रहा है, इसके घर को मिट्टी में मिला दिया गया है।
In Kulgam, forces tore down Zakir Ahmed's safe house, cutting off another vital node of the terror web. In Shopian, Shahid Ahmed's operational base was wiped out alongside Adan Shafi's hideout elsewhere in Shopian.
Again, a demolition drive was carried by the administration along with joint forces. The house belongs to Shahid Kutte of LET. Shahid Kutte is known for his involvement in the terror attacks. In past, he has been involved into the targeted killings as well. But now his name has surfaced in Baisaran attack. One can see the visuals from this very place where the house has been demolished. It has been razed to the ground. The kind of situation that we see, that whether it are the window panes, the glass sheets, the wires or the articles, the household articles, everything has been demolished. The bricks lying on the floor, the iron rods, the rooftops and everything has been grounded. This is Shahid Kutte's place, which has been demolished after his name surfaced in Baisaran attack.
Security forces are coming down hard, showing zero tolerance for terror dens and their protectors across the valley. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has vowed harshest punishment for the perpetrators and conspirators of the Pahalgam attack.
पहलगाम में हुई आतंकी वारदात ने देश के हर नागरिक को दुख पहुंचाया है। पीड़ित परिवारों के प्रति हर भारतीय के मन में गहरी संवेदना है। भले वो किसी भी राज्य का हो, वो कोई भी भाषा बोलता हो, लेकिन वो उन लोगों के दर्द को महसूस कर रहा है जिन्होंने इस हमले में अपने परिजनों को खोया है। मुझे एहसास है हर भारतीय का खून आतंकी हमले की तस्वीरों को देखकर खौल रहा है। आतंकी और आतंक के आका चाहते हैं कश्मीर फिर से तबाह हो जाए और इसलिए इतनी बड़ी साजिश को अंजाम दिया। आतंकवाद के खिलाफ इस युद्ध में देश की एकता, 140 करोड़ भारतीयों की एकजुटता हमारी सबसे बड़ी ताकत है। यही एकता आतंकवाद के खिलाफ हमारी निर्णायक लड़ाई का आधार है। पहलगाम में हुई आतंकी वारदात ने देश के हर नागरिक को दुख पहुंचाया है। पीड़ित परिवारों के प्रति हर भारतीय के मन में गहरी संवेदना है। भले वो किसी भी राज्य का हो, वो कोई भी भाषा बोलता हो, लेकिन वो उन लोगों के दर्द को महसूस कर रहा है जिन्होंने इस हमले में अपने परिजनों को खोया है। मुझे एहसास है हर भारतीय का खून आतंकी हमले की तस्वीरों को देखकर खौल रहा है। आतंकी और आतंक के आका चाहते हैं कश्मीर फिर से तबाह हो जाए और इसलिए इतनी बड़ी साजिश को अंजाम दिया। आतंकवाद के खिलाफ इस युद्ध में देश की एकता, 140 करोड़ भारतीयों की एकजुटता हमारी सबसे बड़ी ताकत है। यही एकता आतंकवाद के खिलाफ हमारी निर्णायक लड़ाई का आधार है।
Indian warships have conducted multiple anti-ship firings in the Arabian Sea, demonstrating their preparedness for long-range precision strikes, with the Navy asserting they are combat ready to protect the nation's interest. Hectic parleys are held in the national capital. Union Defence Minister Rajnath Singh met the Chief of General Staff General Anil Chauhan at his residence in the national capital today.
The CDS was here just a short while back, and the meeting with Raksha Mantri lasted for over 40 minutes. I would ask my camera person to still show you. We are standing right outside Raksha Mantri's residence. While definitely the discussion would have revolved around the future course of action, as the fitting reply on diplomatic lines have already been given, there is a possibility that the next response which would be given would be through force, would be through military. That is what we are expecting.
The clock is ticking for Pakistan. It is only a matter of time now before every drop of blood split in Pahalgam is avenged. Let's debate.
All right, friend, that was a long lowdown on what has happened through the day. And joining me in this conversation, Air Marshal retired Sanjeev Kapoor. He's a defense expert joining us from Noida. We also have Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha, retired defense expert, joining us from the United States tonight. We have Lieutenant General Raj Shukla. He's joining us from Delhi. We also have SP Ved, the former DGP of Jammu and Kashmir Police. Very good evening to you, sir. And then Professor Madhav Nalapat, geopolitics expert, joining us live from Delhi. Before I begin the conversation, I believe there is a breaking news development connected with the subject that we are discussing, which is India's response to Pakistan. It seems that we have pulled one more, and let's break that. India has decided to pull out of the Central Asian Volleyball Championship in Islamabad. It was slated to take place at the end of the next month, beginning May 28th, and the decision has been taken keeping in mind the sentiment and the mood in the present, which is that we don't want to do anything with Pakistan, least of all play games and sports. We'll play games, but those are different games. That's what we are going to discuss, and I want to come back to the panel, and I want to actually begin with Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha. Very good evening to you, sir, and I believe good morning there from the United States. Earlier in the morning, we began our day with pictures coming in of Indian Navy doing some muscle flexing. We saw some BrahMos missiles being flying out here and there, and some of the Navy's assets active in prep mode. You think, sir, that this is really the time that we have to do something? I mean, this is the time when we have to give a military response to Pakistan. And maybe Navy's chance this time. We had Uri being done by the Uri surgical strikes by the Indian Army, by the way, the Balakot air strikes by the Air Force. So it's Navy's turn now.
Well, thank you for getting me on your program. I look at this entire thing, if you listen to Prime Minister Modi's speech, there are two aspects to this entire offensive. The first one is to take out the terrorist camps, and those who are backing the terrorists. So these are going to be very kinetic. And of course, in some of them will have to be totally, you can always deny that you have done this. The second one, which is a longer term, where the Prime Minister has said that we will not we'll demolish or we will diminish, we will, finish off this terror land. Now that is a slightly long-term strategic sort of action, and that may not happen immediately. And that may take time. It may be in collaboration with some other like-minded countries. So I will put it as two actions. One is a kinetic one that you talked about, and this will primarily be to take out the terrorists, known terrorists, unknown terrorists, the terrorist camps which are known, some of the hideouts within our country, and maybe those who are backing the terrorists in Pakistan. So I would put it in these two manners, two clear aspects of Prime Minister Modi's talk. Second point that you made was, the Navy doing exercise. Yeah, when the Navy does a live firing at sea, the seas are used more by commercial ships and less by warships. At any point in time, there are about 90% ships at sea are commercial ships who are engaged in trade. And they're all by what we call global commons, meaning that you just can't go hitting them. Any missile falling on them can become a massive diplomatic row when it goes into world court, etc., etc. So what happens is there is a NAV area issue, the navigational warning area. The whole our area has been divided, it comes into NAV area 8. The NAV area 8 is always issued that practice firing will be carried out by naval warships and submarines in area bounded by coordinates so-and-so. All commercial ships are to avoid transiting from through this area, otherwise they can get hit. Now, once you make this warning, it virtually amounts to blockading that area for transition by any commercial ship, or if the warship is there, it positively get hit. So I would say that this is the preparatory stage to declare that we are here and we are not going to go. We will continue to do our missile firing, rocket firing, and these NAV areas will be in force possibly till further orders. So you are creating a situation just outside all the harbors so that there is no support coming to the belligerent country in form of either shall I say hydrocarbons or spare parts for the aircraft or ships, etc., etc. And that is virtually, it's almost like I would say it's an economic choking of the belligerent country.
Sir, you almost preempted me, because that was my next question, if we can actually exercise the option of putting a naval blockade around Karachi, and you partly answered it. Let me push this further before I go to other panelists. If we can implement a naval blockade, for how long can we do that? And what kind of response can come in if we do it for a longer period of time?
Well, blockade maintenance for a long period of time is quite stretched. It stretches all your assets, because you'll have to keep replacing the ships and keep replacing the submarines and keep them there. The better way to do is what they're doing now. You are just outside his territorial water, which is an open sea, or maybe outside contiguous zone, which is about 24 nautical miles, and you continue doing your firing practice, till cows come home. And if the practice firing is going on and the NAV area is in force, no ship will transit. Certainly not the commercial ships, because they stand the chances of getting hit. Whether you do the firing or not, it is immaterial.
Yeah.
Occasionally you fire, but the NAV area remains in force for a very long duration of time. So I would say that without declaring blockade, because if you declare blockade, then you are saying that you're already waging an economic war against this country, right? And then you can have a lot of pressure from outside countries. Those who are supplying, they will say human rights, we have to aid to our people. People are dying, the countries, all that can happen. But in the present form, those things can be avoided. So I think this is a very right thing to do. Without declaring a blockade, you are actually effectively stopping the movement of merchant ships and warships from in and out of their harbors. Now, which harbor? I don't know where they're deploying. So that is what I'll say.
Okay, my question would be, is it enough? But before that, I am told that there is a breaking news development coming in. The Raksha Mantri, the defense minister of the country, Rajnath Singh, had reached 7 LKM residents of Prime Minister, and that the two leaders are in a confabulation. And this happens on the back of, yes. So the defense minister and the Prime Minister are having a confabulation at the official residence of the Prime Minister at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg, and this meeting has been going on now for about half an hour or more, and this comes on the back of the defense minister being briefed by the chief of defense staff earlier in the day. That was in the afternoon, and that was, of course, a follow-up to the CDS in turn having a briefing from all the three service chiefs respectively, the Army, Navy and Air Force. Key meet between Prime Minister Modi and Defense Minister Rajnath Singh taking place at the residence of the Prime Minister. Coming back to the conversation we were having, and I want to go to Professor Madhav Nalapat on that note. Professor Nalapat, we began by discussing the possible naval actions, one of which in part is already being implemented as the Admiral suggested. You think that's enough, or we really need a solid kinetic response which inflicts costs directly on the soil of the soil of Pakistan, given the fact that Prime Minister has said that not only those who carried out this attack, but the soil which nurtures them would also be targeted this time?
Look, Abhishek, the Prime Minister will be deadly serious, and may I say something that's been pointed out today in the Sunday Guardian, this is India's October 7, 2023 moment. This is the moment when Hamas, the terrorist organization, attacked the state of Israel and just indiscriminately killed people, abducted people, etc. The fact of the matter is that, in effect, Pakistan is a terrorist state. It is not run by civilian government. It's run by the military, and the military main asset, frankly, is terrorism. That's its main modus operandi. So, very, very frankly, in the case of Vajpayee ji, Bill Clinton was there as the president of the United States. He was openly pro-Pakistan and anti-India. And he told Vajpayee ji, "Dekho, don't cross the LOC." It was very difficult for the Air Force to not cross the LOC, but our Air Force managed to do it. But frankly, I don't believe Prime Minister Modi is going to accept any such limit. There is going to be no limit to this, just as there is no limit to the Israeli response on the terror attack by Hamas, and nor should they be. The military capacity of Hamas, Hezbollah, and even the Iranian Revolutionary Guard has been severely degraded. And we need to severely degrade the ability of a rogue state to mount acts of terror against India.
Absolutely. I think the Admiral also suggested that there has to be a short-term and a long-term response. The long-term, of course, along with like-minded countries. So if I can take that to General Shukla, sir, like-minded countries coming together, does it really make sense, or should we do our own thing in terms of, effectively taking the battle into the Pakistani camp?
Well, Abhishek, I look at it this way, and I'll just make 4 very short points. One is that, it is a seminal moment for Indian statecraft. It demands very clear thinking and action. There should be clarity on what we need to do. And in all humility, may I offer my 4 points by way of clarity. And that is that, this time the carnage of Pahalgam was very different. It was not only dastardly and cowardly, but you look at the heinous act, religious targeting, communal terror, fathers being gunned down in front of their sons, honeymoons being turned into funerals. And it was all dog whistled by General Asim Munir, his Takrir or whatever you call it of 16th April. So, and look at the graver issues. It challenges the secular fabric of India. The normalcy which was actually returning to Kashmir. The growth in tourist footfalls. I've commanded a division in Baramulla. Let me tell you, a code has been broken. Mr. Vaid may reinforce it a little later. I've seen encounters about 900 meters, a kilometer away from Gulmarg, and Gulmarg was never touched. There was a code. So this is a very deliberate, uptick. And as Professor Nalapat said, it is not Pakistan. It is a limited, low intellect segment of Pakistan, which is the Pak ISI, and the Pak Army. So what has happened this time, and this is, Pakistan has thrown the gauntlet.
Yeah.
We have no option but to respond. That's the point I'm making. It will be irresponsible.
Sorry to be interjecting, but I just want to push it a little. We used to hear about the IBGs, the integrated battle groups, the cold start doctrine, etc. I'm sure there would be so much of war gaming that would have happened for similar situations and circumstances that we are facing now. Obviously, one of those can be pulled out and maybe used this time.
Let me come to that. IBG is a minor matter in this. That's the point I'm making. You see, we have to now re-establish deterrence. And just give me one minute and I'll tell you what I think needs to be done. What does that mean? This business of, terror being a legitimate tool in their statecraft, this has to be banished from the Pakistani mindspace for decades to come. Which means what? Next time they think of, pushing a group here or there, they postpone it by a year. And how will that be done? In the bevy of options that we have this time, and this is the point I want to make, calibrated, and I choose these words carefully, calibrated military kinetics has to be at the forefront. The whole brunt of India's military power, which is significant, will have to be unleashed in a very calibrated manner. Now, the point that you're making, there are options across domains, there are various instruments. IBG is one instrument, there can be, special forces, there is air power. There are escalatory options along the escalatory ladder. Now, that is a matter of, generalship and operational poise and so forth.
Yeah.
The military detailing is not important.
Yeah.
What is important is that calibrated military kinetics must be at the forefront of the response, because we are responsible. We have shown extraordinary strategic restraint.
Yeah.
And that is why it must be done. May I also tell you just 15 seconds more?
Yes, sir.
The facade and the substance of Indian power is being challenged. The neighborhood is watching. The world is watching. You said, will people help us? The diplomatic space seems to largely be in our favor. But I have no doubt that the response will have to be autonomous.
Yeah.
We will have to do what we have to, and the world will fall in line. So I already hear debates, some channels, this may not be the wise thing, and all that stuff is coming in. Nuclear option. I mean, was the rationale of going nuclear to go on a terror rampage? So we have to very seriously, and I'm saying not in a rash manner, but clear, calm thinking. But I think, I read the Prime Minister's statements right, the Raksha Mantri statements right. This time we mean business.
You are right, sir.
Pakistan is going to bear the brunt of that business very shortly.
You are absolutely right, sir, because Pakistan did not think that we have nuclear weapons when they did the Kargil war. And the Uri surgical strikes and Balakot airstrike show, below the nuclear threshold, there are many options that can be exercised. Some of them, the covert ones, we have been exercising, in fact, for the last few years, and with great success.
Nuclear stuff is entirely a bogey.
Absolutely. And because you mentioned Mr. S.P. Vaid, I can get him here, sir. Mr. Vaid, General Shukla was mentioning about the fact that earlier also there would be encounters even around the periphery of the Gulmarg tourist spot, but not like touching the tourists. This time certain Rubicon has been broken. A certain red line has been broken. What is coming out is, as we have seen in the last 24 hours or 48 hours, there is a huge OGW network, what is called as a euphemism, overground workers. These are essentially terror sympathizers. And while a lot of work has happened over the last 5 years post-abrogation of Article 370, Mr. Vaid, it seems this network is thriving. What do we do?
Good evening, Abhishek, and good evening to all my panelists and your viewers. Abhishek, in last 35 years of this whole game of terrorism, the overground network has actually embraced in the Kashmir, the way of life, and it has been not without any reason that terrorism was actually flourishing in Kashmir, and it was because of the support of the overground network, the support structure, the sleeper cells which exist in different parts of the Kashmir Valley and in some areas of Jammu region. See, while a lot of work has been done after abrogation of Article 370, there were people in the government who have been identified and dismissed. There were people who were actually the financiers of the terrorism and have been actually booked and by NIA and other central agencies. I would say, a lot of good work has been done, but still, an extensive network of these overground workers continues to be there, and it's not without their support. I don't think Pakistanis can survive without the help of these locals. Take 22nd, the Pahalgam attack. These two or three Pakistanis had two local boys with them, whose houses you were showing have been blown off.
Yeah.
Both Adil and the other one.
Yes.
I don't remember. So they are the people who brought these Pakistanis to this, showed this place, racketed it. It's very well planned. They had actually racketed that there is no deployment of the armed policemen during this period. There's no road, so that maximum casualties are inflicted. Evacuation takes time. Many of them died because of the bleeding, because they could not receive medical, that within that golden hour, the medical attention.
Yeah.
So all this was very well planned, and it's not without coincidence that Mullah, I will call him Mullah, the army chief of Pakistan, Azim Munir, he was his rant
but
against
this time
Hindus.
they have targeted Kashmir economy. I mean, they are targeting Kashmiris. They are nobodies.
Abhishek, I have been saying this. Pakistan and its deep state is no friend of Kashmiris. They must understand. Sooner they understand it, the better it is. And I think that is now sinking in the people's mind. I have never seen the kind of response today what you saw on the streets of the Kashmir.
Okay.
Maybe many people say it is for the economic reasons, because of a lot of investment they have made for tourism business. But yes,
something needs to be done.
Whatever is happening in Kashmir, it would not be liked by Pakistan deep state. But my just 30 seconds. My point is, unless we hit these the Pakistan army and the ISI, they must be scared. Take this fight to their backyards. We must hit them. Hit the Pakistani terror camps, obviously, all these training camps, but their Akas, these people, the Pakistan Army's leadership and the ISI need to be hit. Unless you do that, you will not have this problem. We are killing 10 terrorists here, 15 here. It will not actually have impact. Another thing, the way BLA and TTP is hitting them,
sir,
we should openly go and back them up.
My question is, I mean, everything that could have been done, should have been done, has been tried, done, not just in the last 5 years, minus 70 years before that, 75 years before that also. But there is something amiss. And I think that really makes us, someone like me, come to a conclusion that there has to be one final this way, that way kind of situation with Pakistan, where we actually inflict a cost. If I can get in Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor on this note. Marshal Kapoor, the fact that when Balakot happened, we had Prime Minister saying that had Rafales been there, the situation would have been different. This time we have Rafales. Can we use them? Should we use them? Is this the right time to use the Rafales?
Of course. Of course. We have not got them for, that's a showpiece. The things have changed from 2019 till 2025. We have planned and practiced all the things which didn't go right in 2019 in Balakot strike. The weapons have improved. Our DRDO produced weapons have joined our inventory. The Rafales, which you just mentioned, have come. And now we have weapons beyond visual range. You don't have to go across also. We can take out targets from our own territory to begin with. And they are very potent weapons. We are much better prepared, trained and ready than what we were in 2019. I leave it at that. Now, a couple of points I would like to make listening to the fellow panelists. Why this time is different. The body language of the Prime Minister indicates that he was, like in 1999, not informed by the army when they took this action. So the political leadership, if the railway minister is saying that...
You're talking about the Pakistani Prime Minister, I believe.
Yes, the Pakistani Prime Minister's body language indicates probably that he may not be aware that first meeting pictures that came, that he was also in a shock that how this event has happened. The families, as we gather from social media of generals and the senior people in the political leadership, have fled. The latest which I read about half an hour ago is that the Corps Commander of Peshawar has written to the Army Chief stating that a large number of officers and troops have submitted the resignation.
That's a huge thing. If it's coming from you, it's a huge thing, sir. I mean, have you picked it up? Yes. And you can say that this is actually happening, because which means that the Pakistanis are getting jitters. Even the army is getting jitters.
Yes. A large number of officers and their jawans have submitted the resignation. This letter is from the Corps Commander of Peshawar to the Army Chief. The army as such is deployed in Balochistan, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, along Iranian borders. They are being now pulled to move inside towards their eastern borders. Now this paradigm, and in the morning also I mentioned that the holding in abeyance of Indus Water Treaty, which has never been done ever since 1960's signature, is an indication that how serious our government is this time. And the resources there are stretched. And the country, once it engages in full-fledged conflict, will find difficult to get the spares, especially for the airborne platforms and the weapons which they have imported. Because the ongoing conflicts in Israel, Hamas, this area, plus Russia, Ukraine, is already putting a lot of pressure on the production of weapons for these two conflicts. So these things will have to be borne in mind when the engagement actually begins.
Okay, and while we can throw those missiles that side and get Pakistanis to do something so that our ground forces get in, we can look at that kind of, we can imagine that kind of situation emerging, sir?
Yes, we are in a position now to choose the place and time of attack. So we are, the political leadership and the military leadership together at this stage would be weighing all these options. And like was covered by Mr. Vaid and the other things, the problem is the Pakistani Punjabis. They control everything. So killing off a few terrorists here and there is like trimming the branches of the tree. But the actual tree is the hardcore Punjabi domination in that country, which controls the armed forces, business, bureaucracy, politics, and everything.
That's
So
the ultimate strategic, or that should be the ultimate
Pakistan-
strategic objective for India. I'm sure, sir, that you leave the Punjabi, Pakistani rump and take away the rest, and minus the resources. Pakistan withers away. I mean, of course, it's a strategic community's ultimate fantasy insofar as Pakistan is concerned. Hopefully, at some stage in future, if not very near future, it will materialize. But in fact, because we were discussing Rafales, I'm getting a breaking news development connected with Rafales, which is that tomorrow, can we break that story? Can we get that breaking? Okay. The breaking is that India is set to sign a deal on procuring 26 more Rafales, this time the Rafale Marines fighter jets for the Indian Navy. And that's going to happen tomorrow sometime in the afternoon. It's a government-to-government contract for 63,000 crore rupees. And the deal is being signed by the respective defense ministries. It's going to be signed remotely in the sense that the defense ministers are not coming together. Earlier it was the plan, but since now we have a situation where we are more concerned about preparing for our kinetic response to Pakistan, the deal would be signed via video conference. But that's an important move. In fact, if I can go back to Admiral Sinha on that note, we began this conversation by focusing on the Indian naval exercises, live fire exercises in the Arabian Sea earlier in the day. And if you look at it, while we have overall conventional superiority with the Pakistani defense forces, it's in the naval area. It's between the navies that the superiority is the most stark and visible, almost like 3:1. We have 2 aircraft carriers, they have none. And now we are getting those Rafale Marines also. So you think, ultimately, if Pakistan blinks and comes on its knees, it would be ultimately because of the kind of blockade the Indian Navy succeeds in implementing. Block Karachi, block Gwadar.
Well, Abhishek, by doing those exercises right now, hopefully outside these harbors, effectively it has stopped the commercial traffic altogether. And if it can be, it will be sustained. This is not very difficult to sustain. However, aircraft carrier that you mentioned, it gives the flexibility to the government to shift the theater of war. If we find that the pressure by their army or pressure by our pressure on our army, if you want to deflect that, you can easily move the aircraft carriers to a different location and open a new front for them where they're very weak. So this is one. Secondly, when you have those 26 Rafale, mind you, between Air Force and Navy, you will have 66 or 60 or 67 or something like that. So it's a very large number, and they can operate together. They can operate as Rafales coming from multi-direction onto a number of these theaters where the war is likely to shift. It should be shifted. Number two, more important, Pakistan is imploding from inside. We talked about Balochistan, we talked about Pakhtunkhwa, and we also know that there is agitation in Sindh. So sooner or later, given the economy and the manner in which the Pakistan army is driving the government, government is a facade, it's all army. So I would say that government should, use all its might to facilitate that implosion sooner or later.
Absolutely.
So I think, this is, as I said, there are 2 actions. One is kinetic, which will be to make sure that people see what the government has done, which will call for taking out terrorist camps, taking out terrorists, identified terrorists, unknown terrorists, and those who are backing. And if I have to name, I would say Pak Army in the high side. So you can take out as many, and Mr. Vaid also pointed out that he's very right. Because, by killing terrorists, you're not going to finish this. Let's understand that this is an ideological war. Ideologies don't die by killing people here and there. You have to go to the root to remove it. Like it is happening in some parts of the world. That is how you have to address. And therefore, when I said in a long term, you can go with like-minded people. I was talking about a much bigger aim.
Let me take this.
Being, we are very capable, as all my distinguished panelists have just mentioned, and that is very, very desirable.
Let me take this to Professor Nalapat. Professor Nalapat, the economy in doldrums. Marshal Kapoor mentioned about the fact that, and it must have been noticed by others also, that even otherwise he's most of the times a little out of sync, but Shehbaz Sharif was looking jittery, shifty when he was talking about the situation in Kashmir. So obviously he was not in the know, just like his brother Nawaz Sharif was not in the know when the Kargil war happened, obviously because it's Pakistan army which does everything. As Admiral Sinha said that this is the government there is just a facade. You think, Professor Nalapat, that with all the world opinion on our side, if Russia can do it, why can't we?
Well, Abhishek, let me point to the Afghanistan war. The Soviet Union at that time lost the war because they did not strike Pakistan. And they did not strike Pakistan probably because of a perception that the US would intervene. There was no way the US could intervene. Public opinion would have immediately brought down that government through street protest, in the sense the government will be unable to function. So had the Soviets attacked Pakistan, the roots will be finished off. That's what Israel is doing, finishing off the roots of the terror machine. And that's where you have to go. Now, we have talked so much about strategic restraint. In fact, the word restraint is in common use among strategists in India. What about talking about kinetic restraint? That's another absurdity in this situation. There should not be a question of what I call kinetic restraint. And there should be no restraint on these operations. And we should ensure that you can take out terrorist training camp. You inflict damage of at most $50,000 US. You take out the root of the problem, which is the ISI capability and the Pakistan Army capability and their morale, and then you solve the problem. You have to go to the root. Pakistan was a root of the situation in Afghanistan. Soviets did not go there. The fact is, I don't believe Prime Minister Modi will have any kinetic restraint or strategic restraint, because the reality is this has happened once too often. You have to strike, and strike in a way that the military will understand and never respond in this fashion again. That's exactly what the Israelis are doing. They're hitting at Hamas, Hezbollah, and of course the Revolutionary Guard in all sorts of ways, kinetic, non-kinetic, and that's what we should do. Because there's no point taking out a training camp here or there. Because you can rebuild a training camp with under $50,000. You take out the roots, and the roots are within the ISI and the Pakistan Army, and that's what needs to be targeted, and that's what we can, and it's not much longer. Balochistan, Pashtunistan, Sindh, so many provinces are in full rebellion. The army is completely tied up with all that. So frankly, I don't want any kinetic restraint to be shown, although I'm sure a lot of people are going to say, we should have kinetic restraint.
You know, Professor Nalapat, you were mentioning about why the Russians did not go into Pakistan instead of Afghanistan. Just in the morning, I was reading a report somewhere that one of the attackers of the terror attack that took place outside of Moscow last year, which killed almost, 50, 60 people? One of those terrorists has been located in Pakistan, and the Russians are eliciting support from the Pakistani agencies to get them. Just last month, we had the Kabul bomber, while the Americans were leaving in 2021, and that bombing happened at the Kabul airport, in which 13 American soldiers passed away. That Kabul bomber was also found in Pakistan. So obviously, Pakistan is the terror factory. Pakistan is the safest harbor for any terrorist carrying out any terror attack around the world, not just Kashmir. So perhaps maybe we should think in terms of a coalition of the willing to go into Pakistan and dismantle that terror infrastructure. Unfortunately, it has not happened till now. Hopefully, maybe this time is going to happen. I am getting a breaking news development before I go back to General Shukla for his concluding remarks. The breaking news is that India has imposed a condition that if those who are not leaving, the Pakistanis who are on Indian visas, if we can get that breaking going, those Pakistan citizens who are on a visa in India and who are supposed to leave, who was supposed to leave by tonight but can leave now by 29th of April, if they are not doing so, they would face the possibility of a 3-year jail term and a fine of 3 lakh rupees or both. So India really toughening up its stance to get all the Pakistanis out of the country as soon as possible, because then perhaps we will be planning some action. On that note, if I can come back to General Shukla. Sir, is it time to really go back to the basics insofar as military operations in Kashmir are concerned? You know, area domination, patrol, strengthening the anti-infiltration grid, even as the larger plan to inflict costs goes on, those basics have to be back and in a stronger manner.
Of course, you see, we must do all that we can to strengthen the counter-infiltration and the counter-terror grid. But you see, I must emphasize one thing here, that no matter what you do in terms of strengthening these grids, and there have been some deficits, and therefore what happened in Pahalgam, you can do all that stuff, domination of the ridges, you look at the whole infiltration avenues. I'm sure the whole geometry of this will be, looked at. But one point I would like to make, that no matter what you do by internal strengthening, unless you re-establish that deterrence, out of 30 groups, one will get through. So I don't quite subscribe to this talk of an intelligence failure and all, in my view. Because, while you must do everything to tighten up this stuff, you have to re-establish deterrence. Take the matter at its source. That's one point. The second point I would like to make it, when you look dispassionately at the military balance, combat superiority, the combat edge, and India retains escalatory dominance in each domain. So I really think we have nothing to worry. Now, you see, may also add that the selected options can be maximized for lethality and they can be de-risked. But war, things will go wrong. So it may be a long haul. There may be multiple strikes. There may be strikes, combination of strikes and coercion, like the blockade. So we must prepare by way of resilience. Nobody should get the impression that this kinetics will be just one smooth ride. And, since this is a panel, may I offer, there's so much of talk about international norms, democratic principles. Should we urge the international community this time to say that they must persuade the Pakistani military to submit to civilian control? It's the most elevated democratic norm. And if they do that, many of these problems will vanish. I don't know whether that's a possibility, but I thought I must make it. And the final last point is this. You see, India today is what? The 5th largest economy, 3rd largest economy. Asian Power Index calls us the 3rd most powerful country in the world. This is just the beginning. In this aspirational ride towards Amrit Kal, there will be numerous national security challenges.
Yes.
So we have to step up our whole game in national security.
I agree.
And that is for another day.
Absolutely, sir. In fact, I would have wanted one more quick comment from Marshal Kapoor and Mr. Vaid also, but I've really run out of time. I just want to conclude by saying, when you discuss war, there is always a moral question. War mongering is always seen in the negative. But then also in our culture, there is a saying, Shathe Shatyam Samacharet. Do unto a rogue what the rogue is doing to you. I think we have to do a tightrope walk, but then also, this time, teach a lesson to Pakistan. On that note, thanks for watching, friends, this Sunday evening, and for all the guests who joined us. Short break, news is back on the other side, and tomorrow, of course, 8 p.m. Super Primetime Max with Arnab Goswami is back. Be right there.